Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. Today we're talking about some cards in set 16 Realm of the Gods that I personally feel are slept on. These are just cards that I feel like people aren't really talking about enough. They may not be the best cards in the set or the most flashy, but I do feel like they can do some interesting things, whether it's from a meta perspective or a rogue perspective in the upcoming format. I do feel like these cards are worth talking about. Just kind of want to shine a spotlight on them and bring them to your attention. So with that being said, we'll get into it. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you don't miss a video, and if you guys want to help support the channel, many ways to do so down in the description. But today, if you want to buy or pre-order any of the cards we talk about in today's video, use my link in the description to TCG Player. Really does help out a lot, and I really do appreciate it. Anyways, let's get started talking about the first card. Universe 7 United. This card's pretty cool, actually. So it's a 1-drop red extra card. Counterattack, burst 1, get the attack, then choose one of your opponent's battle card. It gets minus 5k for the turn. That's not the cool thing here. Next up, though, permanent affiliated card is a mono red U7 card. You can activate this card's activate battle skill from your hand without paying its energy cost. And activate battle limit 1, spirit boost 1. Choose up to one of your leader cards, unison cards, and gets plus 10,000 power for the battle. So the cool thing here is that in a red U7 deck, of which there are actually many now, as long as you have a unison in play, this is a 0 energy 10k combo. It is limit 1, so you might not want to go gung-ho with a full 4 copies, but I think this card is actually worth splashing as a 2 to 3 of, especially in the red U7 Vegeta deck from the starter deck. I think that's a really good deck to be experimenting with this card, because that deck is super reliant on establishing a unison on turn 2. So if your strategy already revolves around playing a unison on turn 2, why wouldn't you play a card that just synergizes with your unison very well? It does seem really good. Plus, in that deck, you can protect your unison's markers really easily because of your leader's spirit boost ability to basically make it a 21k unison that's going to be very hard for your opponent to attack into. So with that kind of synergy, this seems like a really cool card to play in that deck in particular. But of course, you have your red U7 Gohan, you've got your U7 Goku coming out in set 16 itself. So those are going to be good strategies to possibly experiment with this card, and this can be helpful against certain matchups that are maybe attacking with like 20k battle cards, somewhere in that range. Aggro has kind of moved from this like 15k spam into swinging with bigger battle cards like, you know, 20k and 25k battle cards. So having a 0 energy 10k is going to help you get out of a lot of those situations. It's a pretty cool thing to explore, in my opinion. Then we have Kusu, Angel of Universe 10. So there are a fair amount of these, you know, multicolor angel cards that are pretty solid, but this one I feel like it's not being talked about all that much, and that's probably because blue-green hasn't been a super popular color combination for a little while now. But I do think this thing is just chock full of solid effects. 2-drop 15k counterplay, so you're going to be paying a blue and a green to counterplay with this. Auto, if you have one or more multicolor energy, when this card in your hand is played or used in a combo, your opponent chooses a card in their hand and places it at the bottom of their deck. So that plays around Deborah and other hand control answers, which is really nice. And then auto, when this card's played, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards with an energy cost of 6 or less and place it at the bottom of the owner's deck. This card does so much. Can be played during either player's turn, and as long as it's played, it can bottom deck a battle card of a very sizable cost, which is nice. And you're able to take a card from their hand and put it to the bottom of their deck. That's just super good. In the worst case scenario, you combo with it just to get a card out of their hand. You're playing blue-green, so even though it's a 1 energy 5k, that's not really the end of the world, because you have Sense of Being and other ways to manipulate your energy. So I do think it's actually a super high value card, probably one of the more slept on SRs of the set. And if blue-green makes a comeback, I can easily see this card becoming a, you know, 3 to 4 of staple in any blue-green deck going forward. This card just does so much, especially for the cheap cost of 2 energy. Then we have Vados, Angel of U6, and Whis, Angel of U7. I talked about these cards in quite a few videos now, but I think they are super slept on in terms of red-blue. And red-blue is actually fairly popular right now. Red-blue Soul Striker is making some pretty big waves in the current meta. It's expected to still do well going into set 16 meta, and I think that decks like Cooler, maybe even Invoker, are getting some looks now that the format's kind of shifting up, and these are just really solid blue-red cards. So Vados is a counter play. If you have one or more multicolor energy, play this card. If the battle card being played as a 15,000 power or less, it's placed at the bottom of the owner's deck instead of being played. So that's great for stopping cards like Erotic Riposte and other, you know, some floodgate cards like that, or even some counter plays. Auto, when this card in your hand is played or used in a combo, switch one of your energy to active mode, so that's just an added benefit there. And then Whis, Angel of U7, 2-drop counter attack blocker. Negate the attack and play this card. Permanent, if there are 4 or more colors in your energy, you can activate this card's counter skill from your hand by adding a card to your life instead of paying its energy cost. So that's not going to be usable in most blue-red decks, but that will be playable in the Great Priest deck and even in the SS4 Bardock deck, or AOD as another example. But even for 2 energy, Stopping 2 attacks for 2 energy is not a bad rate at all. And then when you do use it in a combo from your hand, you switch one of your energy to active mode. Not quite as good as Vados, because Vados can do it on play or during combo. So Vados is probably just a better card in general. But again, if you are playing an SS4 Bardock deck, or if you're playing an AOD, for example, this is a free stop 2 attacks and take a life. That's really, really solid for this specific deck that it can work in. Then we have Son Goku challenging a Demon God. So this card's super simple. 1-drop black Goku Xeno. When this card's played from your hand, draw 1. The main reason I want to point this out is I mentioned in a video when I covered the black cards initially that this card was kind of interesting as fusion material for Gogeta Xeno oriented black decks. And that's actually more true now than it was back then, because Goku True Fighting Spirit has been limited to unique. You can only have one of it on the board at a time. Now, I don't think that Gogeta Xeno players are going to start playing less than 4 copies of Goku True Fighting Spirit. I don't think that's really the right call, but this does look like a more appealing fusion material now that that card has been given the unique tag. The thing with the Gogeta Xeno engine is that you've always had way better Vegeta fusion materials than Goku fusion materials. Basically, for Goku's, you always play True Fighting Spirits. You play maybe 2 copies of Catastrophic Premonition, and then your Gokus after that are not really always the best. You have like Crisis Crusher, which most Gogeta decks don't play, and then you have Goku making an entrance, the 1-drop negate, which is not a bad card, but it does have 0 combo power, so that makes it very awkward to use in some cases. So this card being a very simple draw 1, you probably won't play it for the draw 1 very often, but at least it is an option for your fusion materials. Again, now there's been some changes made to the Gogeta Xeno engine as a whole. Then we have Pan challenging a Demon God and Birth of the Crimson Hero. So these are both cards that are pretty much only playable with the new Trunks Xeno deck coming out in set 16, although there are like 1 or 2 other Trunks Xeno leaders as well that you could possibly play these in. But besides that, these cards are just both very good for that leader, and they're super worth talking about because people always want to compare Gogeta Xeno to SSG Trunks, and you know, there's definitely differences in what the leaders do and what they offer a Gogeta Xeno oriented deck, but the main thing you're looking at when you have Trunks in part of the conversation are these 2 cards and what they bring to the table. So Trunks through Pan basically has a topo type of card that can floodgate your opponent out of attacking for the rest of the turn, so that's really strong there. But I also really like Birth of a Crimson Hero because it's basically a free 5k combo that just comes right out of your warp. Like, you don't pay anything for it, you just burst 1 and you get to combo for 5k out of your warp. That basically just becomes a free 5k in your hand essentially. That is a super high value effect. I'm a really big fan of it, and these are 2 huge reasons why SSG Trunks might be able to take over Gogeta Xeno's spot as the best Gogeta Xeno oriented deck, especially when you compound that with the fact of, you know, the ban list and the way that Gogeta Xeno was hit as a whole. Then we have Hit to Battle U7. So this card is, in my opinion, very impressive. The deck it's going to be played in, though, you know, Green Champa, is not going to be all that impressive, honestly. I think it'll be a cool green rogue deck. I've actually had fun playing it, but it's not going to be that crazy within the meta. But I think this card is just insane, more so for what it represents. This is just Green's version, or I guess only Champa's version, of Turles All Too Easy. It's so similar. It's got the same activate main basically of paying 2 and then playing it when you have 3 or more energy, although this has the added restriction of only being playable in a Champa leader and having no battle cards in play. So again, it is more restrictive, but still, you play it, you draw a card, you KO something, it's a double strike with barrier. For 2 energy, that is an incredibly good rate. Obviously, people are talking about the hit SR that kind of, you know, tells your opponent either pitch 2 cards or you're not attacking for the rest of the turn. That card is very powerful, albeit it's going to be pretty hard to get into play in most green decks. But this card, again, although it's locked to the Champa archetype, I think this card is very impressive. I hope we see more cards like this, honestly, because I do like the fact that it can be played for relatively cheap and it just has really good stats. I think more of this type of thing in green, maybe a little bit more generic, would actually be really cool. And then the final card I want to talk about today, guys, is SSB Goku Future on the Line. 5-drop dual attack EX Evolve for 2 yellow over a Goku with energy cost of 3 or less. When this card is played using EX Evolve, switch to active mode, then auto once per turn Spirit Boost 1. When this card attacks, draw 1, then choose one of your opponent's battle cards in rest mode and KO it. This card, again, not super flashy. In some scenarios can be a little bit expensive, but I do think that for what this card is, it's actually really high value. It's 2 energy, doesn't matter what state the Goku was before, it goes back to active mode. It's got dual attack, and then that Spirit Boost 1, you can basically trade in one of your markers on your unison to draw a card and KO a guy. That's a huge plus right there. I've mentioned before that I think this card's gonna be really cool in yellow Whis decks. I gotta work on a build so I can bring it to you guys, because I am actually really interested in that deck and what you can do with it now that you have this card and the 3-drop Vegeta in set 16 that are actually playable in that strategy. Seems really cool. But anyways, guys, those are the cards I wanted to talk about. Hopefully I pointed out some interesting things you can do with these cards in set 16 that not a lot of people are talking about. Let me know in the comments below if you think there are other slept on cards in set 16. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.